Mochi Health is here to help you start your weight loss journey with caring, personalized support. Meet one-on-one with board-certified obesity doctors and registered dietitians who truly listen and understand your unique needs. Eligible patients can access affordable GLP-1 medications delivered right to their door each month. No insurance? No problem. Mochi Health accepts FSA and HSA, making care accessible and affordable. And with 24/7 customer service, you'll never feel alone on your path to better health. Get started with Mochi Health today. Take the free quiz at joinmochi.com and use code AUDIO40 at checkout for $40 off your first month of membership. That's joinmochi.com with promo code AUDIO40.
How much is an hour of your time worth? Whether you're a realtor, lawyer, accountant, or even a content creator, Stamps.com gives you the ability to focus your time on what you do best, not on tedious mailing and shipping tasks. Print stamps, shipping labels, or certified mail forms in seconds. More than 4 million customers have relied on Stamps.com to make their lives easier. Go to Stamps.com/audio for a special offer. No contract, cancel anytime. That's Stamps.com/audio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 214 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Who dat?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
You and I are sitting here eating Twizzlers.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I can get them out of my teeth before, we start the episode.
They're a little sticky.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Hey, we continue to have some great support. Let's give some Patreon shout outs. We had Zaya.
Hey, Zaya.
Elaine Wilson.
Appreciate that, Elaine.
Stacy Finez.
What's going on, Finez?
Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Lawrence Pearl.
Hey, Pearl.
Stephanie Romero.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie.
Nini.
Good old Nini.
Laura Van Dyke.
Hey, Laura.
Amanda Kelly Van Winkle.
Well, what? That's a heck of a name, man.
It is. Try putting that in its entirety on the back of a jersey or something.
I just think about going through school, having to write that name out all the time.
Well, I'm assuming that wasn't her entire name when she was a youngster.
You never know.
Never know. Haley Cannon.
Hey, Haley.
Lena Litya.
What's up, Litcha?
Leandra Walker.
Hey, Leandra.
Thirsty Satan.
Well, have some holy water.
Tabitha Robertson.
Hey, Tabitha.
DJ.
What's going on, DJ?
Kaylee Leva.
What's up, Leva?
Krieg Bratton.
Really, Krieg? It sounds like a tough Russian name.
Sounds like the guy from The Office.
Or that too.
His name was Creed.
Yeah.
But close.
Yeah.
Faith Wilson.
Hey, Faith.
Paranormal Nomad.
What up, Nomad?
Tracy Ann.
Hey, Tracy.
Danny.
What's going on, Danny?
Vanessa Moak.
Hey, thanks, Moak.
Timothy Stratton.
What's going on, Timothy?
And Amber Robertson.
That's awesome. Thanks, Amber.
So we appreciate all that new support. And then if we go back into the vault, Gibbs, this week we selected Marlene Simon.
Hey, Marlene.
So we appreciate all the long-term Patreon support as well. We had some great PayPal donations as well from Kathy Anderson.
Hey, Kathy.
Allison Airy.
What's going on, Allison?
Belinda Rivamonte. And Sue Lewis.
Thanks, Sue.
So thanks to all of you. Gibbs, we have an episode out on TCAT. We're talking about Richard Lyon. This is a man who poisoned his wife and almost got away with it.
He really did.
Until the prosecution dropped one of those Perry Mason-like bombshells at the trial.
Good thing they did.
Yeah, it is, because I think this guy was about ready to go free. All right, buddy, are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I'm all set.
We're talking about the 1987 unsolved murder of Linda Weldy. We're headed to the state right next to ours, Indiana. 10-year-old Linda Weldy stepped off her school bus on February 24th, 1987, and was never seen alive again. It was almost as if she stepped off into a different dimension. Her brother and stepfather were working in the driveway of their home, meaning that there was about a 90-second window for Linda's abductor to strike. And the question has always been, was this a stranger who was just passing through and targeted Linda, or was it someone that she knew? Linda's case has been unsolved for over 30 years, despite police repeatedly but mistakenly announcing the imminent arrest of the perpetrator. Gibbs, as we always talk about on these unsolved episodes, someone out there knows something. And Karen, her mother, spends every day hoping that person will come forward. And we hope for that too. Perhaps that day will come.
Like we all know, it's a parent's worst nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at this one, to have her brother and her stepfather working in the driveway, that has to take it to a different level for them, especially because they were right there. And we'll get into the details, but heartbreaking. On that day in February, blonde and freckled little Linda Weldy sat next to her best friend on the bus ride home from Critchfield Elementary School. Her BFF got off one stop before Linda at the trailer park across the street, so they begged the bus driver to allow Linda to get off at her friend's stop. Linda didn't want to go home, but the driver had to refuse their request because it was against school district policy. And that seems like a pretty good policy.
It does, but I know we all been there where we wanted to get off at that bus stop with our buddy, our friend at the time. Sometimes I know I just got off the bus anyway.
Yeah, just got up and got off. I remember that back in the day. But here's the thing. You know, when you're talking about 9, 10-year-olds, the liability of letting them off at a stop other than their own, that would be huge.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Especially knowing what we know is going to happen. But they didn't live all that far apart. And really all it meant was that they would have to ride their bikes to meet up as they usually did.
Which we all did anyway, right? Back in that day.
Actually,
riding the bikes.
Yeah, and good exercise as well. It's been reported that they really didn't like playing at Linda's house because they thought her stepdad, Robert, was on the mean side. The girls were going to ride their bikes to the abandoned trestle bridge, where the teenagers hung out, smoking cigarettes and making out. They overheard Linda's older brother talking about it, and the girls thought it sounded cool.
That sounds like kind of a cool place to me. Back then it would have been.
I'm sure that's where you were.
Yeah.
That's the type of place where you would have hung out.
Yeah.
Smoking cigarettes, making out, watching Captain Kangaroo, all that stuff.
Nothing wrong with Captain Kangaroo.
As her friend departed the bus, Linda stuck her head out the window and called her a wiener. Her friend called her a wiener back and said, "Nanu, Nanu."
Haven't heard that in a while.
No, that was Linda's catchphrase from her favorite show, Mork and Mindy. I loved Mork and Mindy, Gibbs. I always thought Robin Williams was hilarious. I also had a little bit of a crush on Pam Dawber.
I bet you did.
It didn't matter that the plot was zany. You know, I did look it up. The first season of Mork and Mindy got a 28.6 rating. It was tied with Happy Days, if that tells you anything. Everybody knows how popular Happy Days was. The ratings dipped every year after that, and it was canceled after, I think, 4 years. But Gibbs, a 28.6. To put that into perspective, you look at a show like Modern Family, a huge smash hit, right?
Right.
The highest season they ever got was like an 8.1.
There's the difference between having 3 or 4 channels out there to watch to having hundreds of channels to watch.
Well, and last year, the top episode of any show that was not the NFL was The Masked Singer, and it got an 8.9. The Super Bowl got a 33.2. That probably tells you more than anything.
It sure does.
It really does show you back then how few choices we really had. So Linda's friend got off the bus. Linda got off at the next stop. Police believe Linda was abducted as she walked to the mailbox at the end of the driveway of her LaPorte, Indiana home at 181 West McClung Road. So I want to go back to her brother and stepfather doing work at the house. I mean, police believe she made it to her mailbox.
Yeah.
And was abducted from there. So, that really kind of puts it into perspective of how close they believe her family was to her at the time she was abducted.
Yeah, whoever abducted her had to be pretty brazen.
According to ABC 57 News, Linda's older brother, 12-year-old Bill, arrived home from Boston Middle School shortly ahead of Linda. He and his mother's fiance, Robert E. Golf, were in the front yard working on a television antenna when Linda got off the school bus. Linda's mother, Karen, had just started a new job in Walkerton, about 30 minutes away, and had already reported for the second shift. Earlier in the day, before the kids arrived home, Robert's younger brother, 19-year-old Mark, had been by the Weldy home to visit his brother and got his help working on his girlfriend's car. He left for work before the kids arrived home from school. Before Linda would have walked up the 200-foot-long gravel driveway to her home, she usually collected the mail from the box located beside the driveway. The driveway had a dip in it that made it impossible to see the house from the road, and the heavily wooded lot made it impossible for Bill and Robert to see Linda if she walked up the driveway to the house. It was a blind spot that detectives would later determine would have taken Linda no more than 90 seconds to walk. And they theorized that this was when Linda was taken by her abductor at 3:30 p.m. A neighbor told police later that she walked past the Weldy driveway on her way to pick up her own child and had not seen Linda or a vehicle in the Weldy's driveway. So I mentioned it, right? Investigators believe Linda was abducted at 3:30, but no one knew anything was wrong until almost 7 hours later.
Yeah, that's a long time.
It was around 11 p.m. when Karen's shift ended, and she used the CB in her car to radio home to check on the kids and ask Robert if she needed to stop at the store for anything. A little perspective on how old this case is.
Sure.
We're using CB radios. We don't have cell phones.
Yeah. Breaker 19, good buddy.
I used to have a CB radio in my car.
I believe you did.
In high school, me and my buddies all had CB radios so we could keep in touch.
Yeah. What was your call name?
I don't know if I had one.
Big Mike.
I wasn't a trucker or anything like that.
Big Fergie here.
Well, and I think on top of that, the Weldys didn't have a home phone. So the CB radio was really the primary source of communication. When Karen radioed home that evening, Robert asked her if she had given permission for Linda to spend the night at a friend's house because she had never arrived home from school that day. Karen said no. She had not approved a sleepover, and Linda should have been at home. And I think right then and there, Karen knew something was wrong. She found a payphone and called the police.
I mean, red flag for me. I think if you knew that your stepdaughter should have been home, and as time went on, wasn't home, and you thought, well, maybe she went to a friend's house, but I don't know. I think I would have found a way to maybe go up and talk to Karen to double check, or maybe go over to the friend's house that you thought she might be at. I don't know. I just think it's really weird that you decide not to do anything. But
yeah, I think it's strange to assume, make that assumption that she's staying with a friend. We already said her BFF didn't live that far away. It wouldn't have taken that long to drop over. But I don't know what the situation was in the house. But Karen's called to police, began a search that would last for 3 weeks. And we mentioned that the family didn't have a telephone. The local phone company donated and installed one at the house so the family could more easily communicate with police and volunteers who coordinated a search for Linda. Karen never lost hope that her daughter would be found alive and well.
So I like when companies step up like that.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Now, sometimes they do it for publicity. I get that. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, they're still doing something good.
Sure.
Whether the motive is completely benevolent or whether there's something else behind it. But I think the other thing here, Gibbs, to talk about is, a parent never losing hope, because I don't think you can, right? Your child's missing. You have to hope and continue to hope that she's going to be found alive. She's going to be okay. We're going to get her back and we're going to move on with our lives. Now, is that harder in some situations than others? I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
It's probably also harder for some people. Maybe some people are more pessimistic and they automatically go to, oh my gosh, something is horribly wrong here. We're never going to see her again. But I think for me, I can only speculate as to what I would do not being in that situation. My thought is it's hope and more hope. And continuing to hope that everything's going to be okay, because I can't live with the alternative. So I got to go with the hope.
I agree with you. I'm the same way. I don't want to think about worst case scenario, right? I want to keep that hope alive as long as I possibly can.
On March 17th, 3 weeks into the search for Linda, detectives went to the Weldy home with the news that the human remains of a little girl had been discovered. They were found on top of the abandoned trestle bridge. Authorities believed they had found Linda. This location was just a 15-minute drive from the Weldy house. Karen and her mother accompanied police to the morgue to identify the body. And like we talked about, Gibbs, until that moment, Karen believed her little girl would be found and returned to make their family complete again. This had to have been a horrible moment. It's something that parents just can't fathom. Karen was forced to confront the badly decomposed remains of her baby, her precious little girl who loved to go fishing, to ride bikes with her friends. She loved animals, and whose favorite TV show was Mork and Mindy.
Heartbreaking.
Linda's body was discovered on the abandoned bridge in Kingsbury, which had once been used by the railroad as an access bridge. It was roughly 9 miles from the Weldy home, east of Highway 35 off of 500 South. Linda had been discovered by a farmer who had been clearing out a ditch on his farm. The land containing the railroad trestle bridge where Linda's remains were discovered between two railroad ties was located on his property. I think it probably goes without saying, Gibbs, but this was a railroad trestle bridge that was not used.
Right. Yeah, at some point in time, the railroad company just didn't need it anymore.
And I'm probably sure it wasn't too long after that it became a spot for teenagers to hang out, smoke cigarettes, smoke weed, make out, do whatever teenagers do.
Well, it was known as a kind of a lover's lane area.
Investigators found tire tracks in the area, but the tracks were too degraded to determine make and model. As you mentioned, Gibbs, this was a spot that had been pretty well known as a lover's lane for the local teens. The fact that Linda's body was left in this location points to someone familiar with the area being her killer. I believe this is what the police thought. It's got to be someone who knew this area, right? Rather than a stranger who was just passing through. Linda's body was found fully clothed, wearing the same clothes she had been last seen in. Her cause of death was determined to be manual strangulation. It's believed that she was killed the same day she was abducted.
So they find her. She's still got her clothes on, strangled to death. I mean, she's 10 years old. Who would do something like this, and why would they do this?
Well, that's a question we ask quite often. I think the fact that she was found fully clothed most likely led investigators to believe that she was not sexually assaulted. Doesn't mean she couldn't have been. We've covered cases before where victims were redressed. But I think that would be the first theory to come to police, that she was killed, not sexually assaulted.
And I also like the thought that obviously whoever did this to her had to be most likely from the area to know that spot, right? I mean, you have to have some type of intimate knowledge of that area to get back there.
Yeah, from my understanding, this isn't a place that you're just going to stumble upon driving through town.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a place that the teenagers knew about. They knew how to get there, and other people obviously would have as well. But it's not a place where a stranger who had abducted a 10-year-old girl would probably just stumble upon. So I agree with you. It kind of fits with the theory that this was probably someone in town, local, or at least had knowledge of this area.
So the only thing near this site, besides the farm, was a motorcycle gang clubhouse. So it was pretty remote.
3 days after Linda's remains were located, Karen was interviewed by a reporter for the Chicago Tribune. During the interview, she was asked if she thought her daughter's killer would be found. She responded by saying, "No, I don't think so. Not unless he kills again." So Gibbs, I think, this comment coming just 3 days after Linda's remains were found, a lot of people thought that it was kind of strange. It was odd for her mother to make this type of comment. And some people wondered if she knew more than she let on. Now, I think others saw it as an off-the-cuff remark from a mother who had just found out recently that she lost her child, made during a real time of grief.
Yeah, I mean, I think you really do have to factor that in, right? I mean, is she really thinking the way that people thought she should have been? I don't know.
And that's always a tough thing because you don't know. She might have been medicated.
Yeah.
She might have been prescribed some sedatives by her doctor or some type of medication for anxiety. It can't be an easy time to go through.
She could have just been frustrated with the whole process and said, you know what? Probably won't find them. You just don't know, right? We're not in her shoes, so we can't know for sure.
Linda was cremated 3 days after her remains were discovered. Her ashes, years later, were spread on the grave of her grandmother. Her grandparents' headstone includes a small memorial that reads Little Linda Lynn Weldy. I wonder, Gibbs, if they spread all of the ashes or if her mother kept some. I don't know the answer to that. I never saw it in the research. To me, I think it would be hard to spread them all and to have nothing left of your daughter.
Yeah, I agree with you. The other part I would have an issue for me would be separating her ashes. I know it probably sounds weird, but I wouldn't want to sprinkle some and then take some and sprinkle it elsewhere or keep it. Be like, I want her to stay together whole, but they're ashes.
I get that. No, but I get what you're saying. And I think it comes down to, everybody's going to have a different take on what they would do. I'm definitely not saying anything about what Linda decided to do because, that's up to her. I just wonder, because I didn't see it in the research, whether she spread all of the ashes or she spread some and then kept some, to keep in the house or whatever.
Interesting thought, though.
Now, we've talked about it time and time again, but investigators always start with those closest to the victim. And FBI statistics state that children residing with an unrelated male are 33% more likely to be abused. So I'm sure those two things played into the police starting with Karen's boyfriend, Robert, and his brother, Mark, as being the initial focus of their investigation. Now, Karen has said she's 100% convinced of Robert's innocence. And I think to back that up, she continued on with her plans to marry him. Robert voluntarily submitted DNA samples shortly after Linda's remains were discovered. Now, I think on the surface, Gibbs, Robert doesn't seem to be a very good suspect. We mentioned it. He was with Linda's brother, Bill, that afternoon. Not sure how he would have had an opportunity to snatch Linda as she got off the bus. My thought is if he had left around that time, then Bill would have brought that to someone's attention.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Bill was, 12 years old at that time? He could have spoken for himself at that age.
Well, and especially after everything came out.
Yeah.
Or even as the years have gone on. We've said how old this case is. I think he would have brought up the fact that Robert left for some period of time,
right,
came back later. That would have all come out.
I think if Bill thought Robert had any opportunity, he would have said something.
Yeah, to me, that makes a lot of sense. Karen and Robert married 1 year later on Linda's birthday. She would have been 11 years old. And, while some people thought it was insensitive to create an anniversary on this day, those that were close to the couple understood that it was a way to include Linda and make sure that she was remembered as part of their family, even in death. Karen has come out and said she would never have married Robert if she thought there was even the slightest chance that he was involved in Linda's death.
Well, and mother's intuition is pretty strong.
As for Mark, he had already left for work before either child arrived home on the school bus that day. And he did arrive at work at the usual time that afternoon. Karen has said that Mark loved Linda and would not have harmed her. Mark, too, voluntarily submitted his DNA sample to investigators and participated in a polygraph examination. He denied having anything to do with Linda's abduction and murder. But when he was first questioned, Mark denied even being at the Weldy house that afternoon. He later admitted to that lie.
Well, maybe he was a little afraid to say that he was there.
Yeah. I mean, people say things when they're scared. People lie when they're scared, right? They don't want to be thought of as a suspect, but obviously it's very short-sighted. It's going to come out that you were there. Now, people that commit crimes also do the same thing. That's why it makes it suspect.
Sure.
That you would lie. Well, police are going to look at that. And maybe that's why he had to go the extra step and take the polygraph and all of that. Shortly after Linda's remains were found, Mark says that investigators told him they had discovered fibers and a grease spot on Linda's coat that matched those in the trunk of his girlfriend's car, the car that he was working on with his brother at the Weldy home that day. Mark has explained that the fibers could have been transferred to Linda's coat when the kids played in the car on a different day.
I can see that. That can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I do think you have to be very careful with fibers, especially. We've seen a lot of cases where people were convicted on fiber evidence. It later turns out that either the fibers didn't match, they were microscopically similar,
right,
but they didn't match, but the jury was led to believe they did. Or in cases where they do match, let's say it is verified that it's a match, fibers are easily transferred all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we don't see it, we don't realize it, but fibers and hairs and things like that are transferred. I mean, I get in my car and there will be a long hair on my shirt.
Yeah.
Is that my hair?
No,
because I have no hair.
we know that.
So obviously that hair belongs to my wife or one of my daughters. And how they get on my shirt, I have no idea.
I find long hairs all the time, and I don't even know who they belong to. Like, where did that come from? Could it came when I sat here? Could I brought one of the girls' long hair home? I don't know. Could it have been when I was eating somewhere and got it off a chair there? I don't know. I mean, it's difficult.
Yeah, you might want to back off on Tinder too, because all these Tinder dates you've been going on.
Is that the swipe Swipe left.
Oh,
swipe right.
yeah. Let's act like we don't know what it is.
I don't know, man.
Robert has also said that if either he or Mark were involved, DNA would have implicated them long ago. So this is an interesting statement, Gibbs. Unfortunately, we don't know what the police have as far as DNA evidence. I think it's pretty safe to say that they have something, or they wouldn't have.
Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quest to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
Have asked Robert and Mark to give DNA samples. Why give a DNA sample if there's nothing to compare it to? There has to be something.
Oh, I believe it. Of course there is.
Yeah, we just don't know what it is. Maybe police, because this is an unsolved case, don't want to release that information. That happens. Robert has put forth the theory that Linda was killed by a member of the Center's motorcycle gang. Gibbs, you mentioned that there was a motorcycle gang clubhouse not all that far from where Linda's body was found. It belonged to the Centers. Robert said he had been asked to join the gang. He even spent some time wearing their colors, but after being a probationary member for several months, he changed his mind and returned their vest.
I know you did something similar to that gang you used to belong to.
Sure. I mean, this really takes me back to one of my favorite shows. You know, Sons of Anarchy is one of my favorites. I watch the whole thing at least once a year. Now, in that show, they had probationary members. And if I remember correctly, it was a minimum 1 year probationary period before they were voted on to see if they could become an official member of the motorcycle gang.
Right.
I don't know if it's the same in every gang, but the other thing that you see in that show is that there are a number of people who pledge, who think they want to be in it until they kind of really figure out everything that's going on. And some people say, this isn't for me. Because depending on what type of motorcycle club or gang we're talking about, okay, it could run the gamut from just having rides and doing charity rides and things like that to, some of these gangs are into some very violent criminal activities.
Yeah, and allegedly this one here was running drugs.
Robert told ABC 57 News that one of the Centers, a guy by the name of Oliver Peak, whose nickname was Eskimo, abducted and killed Linda in retaliation for his defection from the group. He claims he overheard Eskimo bragging to others that he killed Linda Weldy. And because bikers hate child killers as much as the rest of us, Eskimo was rumored to have been killed by his own gang, drowned in a nearby lake. That rumor proved untrue. Now, Eskimo did die, but not until 1995. And he wasn't killed by members of his own gang. He died at his home from a heart attack. So purely natural causes.
Not as dramatic as we would have thought.
No, and I think when you look at it, it seems to me to be unlikely that this gang would have been so hell-bent on revenge that they would have kidnapped and killed Linda.
A 10-year-old.
A 10-year-old girl who was not Robert's biological child.
Yeah, I mean, we just said biker gangs, they hate child killers as much as the rest of us.
Yeah, I think for me, Gibbs, this story is a little hard to believe because you have to ask the question. If they were that upset about the actions of Robert Egolf, why wouldn't they have killed Robert? If they were going to kill someone, why would they have abducted and killed a 10-year-old girl and not just gone after the person that they were mad at?
Yeah. He would have been the guy that would have had detailed information about their activities, not a 10-year-old girl.
Yeah, so that adds another element, right? Would they have been afraid that he could have potentially leaked confidential information concerning their operations to people outside of the gang? Linda couldn't have done that.
And by killing Linda, all you would have done was push him to the point that maybe he would go tell information.
Yeah, you would certainly take the risk that you would bring more heat on the club. And if it was true, as it's been rumored, that they were running some drugs, that would have been the last thing that they would have wanted. And you're right. Killing Linda could have potentially pushed Robert over the edge, and he could have spilled everything he knew about the club. So that one for me is a little far-fetched. It's kind of hard to believe. Now, many people have mentioned a controversial man named Larry Hall as a suspect in Linda Weldy's murder. And there have been other names mentioned as well. Hall is currently serving a life sentence for the kidnapping of 15-year-old Jessica Roach. Jessica was murdered and her body was dumped in a farm field. And Gibbs, nobody at this farm knew her body was there. And so what happened was her body was mutilated by the farm equipment used to the point where a cause of death could not be determined. So that resulted in the fact that Hall could not be charged with her murder, only with her abduction. Larry Hall has a somewhat low IQ, measured at 80, which apparently Gibbs is more than one standard deviation below normal. I didn't know that.
I did not know that.
I actually didn't know what normal, quote unquote, normal was. You and I have talked, especially on True Crime All the Time, about the number 70.
Yes.
You know, an IQ of 70 or below 70 indicates a number of things. And we often see that number lower than 70 in some of the killers that we profile. And I think, Gibbs, it's been thought by some that many killers with a low IQ score are thought to be incapable of committing their crimes. Well, I don't agree with that. I think the number of people that we've profiled with, extremely low IQs kind of flies in the face of that thought. Now, FBI profiler Roy Hazelwood says that many of these individuals possess what he calls low animal cunning. And he uses Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, as an example. Ridgway murdered a lot of women.
Man, he sure did.
I mean, the numbers are staggering, and he got away with it for a period of time. He also happens to have an IQ of 80, the same as Larry Hall. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not putting much into this 80 number, or even lower when it comes to people being able to do something. I think they're able to do something.
I do too.
And they're able to get away with it and keep doing it until they're caught. So, think about some of the cases we've done on TCAT. We've said some of these killers, even with a low IQ, do some things that are very calculating. They show some intelligence in the way that they go about what they do, and in the way they go about avoiding detection, avoiding capture. Now, you can make the argument that at a certain level, do people know right from wrong the same way that others with a higher IQ do? I don't know. Defense attorneys obviously try to make that argument all the time.
Of course they will.
And I'm sure at a certain level with certain people, that's true. They may not understand fully how wrong their actions are, but I don't even know if I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean,
it's tough.
It is. What really encompasses that number, 70, 80? What really is that, right?
An IQ score?
Yeah. I mean, but what's it really, is it defining as a whole, can you say that their IQ is lower in this range, but maybe they're a little bit higher over?
Well, you just get one number.
I know, but you know,
I think I know what you're trying to say, which is you can have people that have low intelligence in certain areas. Maybe they're not book smart,
right?
They don't have much in the way of education, but do they have street smarts, and do they have a level of cunning that allows them to do these horrible things that they do?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think an argument could be made for that. The rumor of Hall's involvement in the case can be traced back to writer Christopher Martin, who wrote a book that put forth the theory of Larry Hall as Linda's killer, but really without any evidence to support it, other than some vague innuendo that Hall provided in an email. Now, I will say this, it doesn't seem as though Larry Hall is very high on the investigators' list of suspects. For one thing, Linda Weldy did not fit Hall's victim preference, nor did the MO of the abduction and murder fit Hall's MO. Plus, there's no evidence that he was in LaPointe, Indiana on the day of her abduction. Hall was exhaustively investigated and was eventually ruled out as a suspect in Linda's murder. Al Williams with the Indiana State Police said Larry Hall liked to take credit for things he didn't do. He liked to be famous for homicides, for murders. It was just something he wanted to do. And at the time, if there were unsolved murders in the area where he lived or traveled, he took credit for them. Boy, he sounds a lot like someone else we know. Well, we don't know him, but
yeah,
sounds like Henry Lee Lucas.
Sure does.
Another person was also considered a person of interest, but police have declined to name that individual publicly. I think what's tough, Gibbs, is that police have never been able to establish any type of motive. Or if they have, they've never announced it.
Yeah, they either are keeping it close to their vest or they just don't have it.
And on top of that, no suspects have ever been charged. And I think without a motive, it's tougher, because then what are you left with? Most likely you're left with, this is a complete stranger, or if not a stranger, it's just someone who had a compulsion to abduct and kill a 10-year-old girl. There's nothing tied to it as far as revenge, or they were upset with one of the other family members or something like that. Okay, that makes cases much harder to solve.
Yeah.
No motive. Until you can establish a motive, unless you've got a DNA hit or something like that, you're up against it.
Very difficult to solve.
Linda Weldy's case has grown cold in the 34 years since her tragic murder. Project Cold Case reports that there are currently 4,100 homicide cold cases in the state of Indiana, which represents 57% of homicides. So, if you take those numbers and do the math, that makes Indiana's solved rate at around 43%. That's a scary thought.
Yeah, it is a scary thought.
And I'm sure that is not relegated to the state of Indiana. This is something that happens across the country. And to me, it's very troublesome. I get it. You can't solve every case. But man, those numbers are staggering. Now, what I will say is that 43% in Indiana is well below the national average. But the national average is only 60%.
And yeah, that's great that it's more than half of the cases are being solved, but nowhere where you would hope the numbers would be.
No, because you're saying 40% of all homicides go unsolved.
Scary.
It is. It really is. With the number of homicides that we have in this country. According to ABC 57 News, the lead investigator on the case, Captain Patrick Cicero, says that there have been many persons of interest. Over the years, both suspected and cleared. He reopened the case in 2019, and an office was given to him to house the case materials. This guy believes he knows who committed Linda's murder, even though he cannot officially announce his suspicions. So that's interesting.
It is interesting because now he just has to find a way to prove it
Yeah.
if his suspicions are correct.
Well, I think that is absolutely right. You can have all the suspicions that you want, but until you can prove it, until you can build up the evidence that a prosecutor can take into court and present to a jury, you don't really have anything.
Yeah.
But who you believe is most likely to have killed this girl.
I mean, he does have time against him, right? 30
Yeah.
plus years of time.
But maybe he has technology going for him. And that's something that you and I talk a lot about. Yeah, the years against really hurts. A lot of time has passed, memories fade, people die, but the technology has moved forward by leaps and bounds. So, if there's any DNA at all, now we're getting into the area of genetic genealogy.
Right.
That's played a big part in solving a lot of cases recently. There's some hope for sure. But when you break this case down, Linda Weldy has gone without justice for 34 years. That's 3 times longer than she was alive.
Yeah.
That goes for her family as well. Her mother still mourns for her and grieves over all the milestones that could have been. Graduation, college, first love, first kiss, wedding, grandchildren. That's something that, to be honest with you, I don't always think about. I think about the pain and the heartache that the family members of victims go through.
Yeah, initially.
And on a daily basis as the years go on.
Right.
But I don't specifically think about, okay, the anniversary of a death, the anniversary of the victim's birthday.
Right.
All these days throughout the year that are going to be extremely tough to get through.
Yeah.
And then talk about things that never happened or think about things that never happened, but when they would have happened. As a mother, Linda would have graduated with her class on this date. Okay. That's going to be a very tough day.
It is going to be. You're going to run into her friends at the time that
Sure.
are grown now.
Yeah.
Getting married, graduating from college, having kids. And it's just going to flood all that back into your memory.
Karen has a lot of unanswered questions. I think one of the big ones is, why Linda? Was it as simple as her being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or did someone target her specifically? And again, I think that goes back to motive, right? Was there a real motive, or was this a crime of opportunity? Did she cry out for her mother? Did she suffer? Karen wonders if she did something. Did she fail to do something that contributed to her daughter being abducted and killed? And then I think the big one that sticks with people, and I know it sticks with Karen, is, will she ever have any type of justice or closure? Will she ever know what really happened and who did it? Gibbs, one of the things I do like to think about is that it's very possible that someone out there listening right now knows something that could lead to Linda's case being solved, even after 34 years. I mentioned it, memories fade, but it could be just a kind of a throwaway comment made by someone.
Yeah. I mean, this case was suggested to us by one of our listeners.
It was.
And just today, he did mention that he shared some information with the investigator on this case that may or may not help it. But there was some information that he had from his dad and his uncle that he thought was important to share that occurred back in that time.
I think the other thing you definitely need to think about is there were children back at that time, including Linda's best friend. Children of that age might hear something or see something and not realize the importance of it until years later.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just that little bit of information that can push a case along.
Yeah, we've seen cases solved by what you would really think is like a small thing.
Yeah.
But it's exactly what investigators needed to kickstart the investigation and lead them on to the right path.
Yeah.
Today, the once gravel driveway is paved, and Linda Weldy's home has been demolished and replaced by a VFW post. If you have any information related to the abduction and murder of Linda Weldy, contact the Indiana State Police Detective Division at 1-800-552-8917. So, Gibbs, as we wrap up the case of Linda Weldy, these are heartbreaking types of cases. You're talking about a 10-year-old who probably never did anything to anyone. I mean, nobody deserves to be abducted and murdered, but we're talking about real innocence, right? A child.
Right.
Hasn't even lived enough life probably to tick anyone off to the point where they would have bad feelings towards her or anything like that. I think one of the things I struggle with in a lot of these unsolved cases is we're talking about young people. I mean, even into their 20s, they have so much life to live. And some of these individuals are going to go on to raise families. Their kids are going to have kids. Their kids' kids are going to have kids. It's kind of like the butterfly effect. I think of it like that. How does it change the future? Now, this is on top of their family's grief and all of that. I'm not discounting that at all. I just think about what these individuals would have gone on to do and how it would have changed how many different people's lives.
Countless.
Yeah. We don't know.
Right.
And I think there's something very sad about that.
Extremely.
But that's it for our case on the unsolved murder of Linda Weldy. We got some voicemails. You want to check those out, Gibbs?
Let's hear them.
Hi, guys. This is Susan from Illinois again. I just finished listening to Ellen Greenberg, and I was thinking, you guys were talking about how Bergie said he would watch the autopsy. I previously worked in a forensic pathologist's office, and for some reason, the autopsies to me were just very interesting. Things that you could find out that the body does or how you can find out the cause of death is amazing. And that never bothered me either. There were a couple parts of it that were kind of something that were hard to take. But I think the worst thing I've ever seen in my life as far as surgeries, autopsy, everything was a cesarean section. Oh, my God. I thought I was going to pass out. So I don't know how women do it. I don't have any children myself, and I think, ooh-wee. But anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you guys. I love all of your podcasts, and take care, stay safe, thank you for your own time taken.
Man, Gibbs, we should do a podcast about the worst thing you've ever seen. Just
God.
ask people to call in.
Yeah.
I've never seen a cesarean, but I have seen a regular childbirth. I've seen two of them.
Yeah.
My own daughters. One I delivered myself because the doctor couldn't be found. That was interesting.
There you go, bragging again.
Well, hey, I put that on my resume too.
Yeah.
But, it's a sight to be seen. There's no doubt about it.
It is. It's memorable.
That's a good word for it.
Yeah.
Hey boys, it's Tim from Adelaide in South Australia, the murder capital of Australia. Just wanted to call and say thanks so much. I'm 100% up to date with all your episodes. You guys keep me company on all of my projects on my 3-acre property, building walls, cutting down trees and building my own carport. But I just thought I'd let you know, we've got a bit of news from South Australia. Today, the Somerton man was exhumed, suspected of being a spy. So we're trying to figure that one out. But anyway, just wanted to ring up and say love your work, and stay cool and keep your own time ticking. Cheers.
Well, thank you very much for the kudos. I will say, Gibbs, that we have got a lot of messages about this exhumation. It's a big deal.
Sure it is.
It just so happens that we did the case recently. Now, you and I are taping early.
We are.
So by the time this episode comes out, this news is going to be about a week and a half old.
It will be.
Or something like that. But, I'm really going to keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
I'm very interested. That case has been around so long. If they finally solve that thing, it'll be amazing.
I'm glad we were able to help.
It won't be because of anything we did, but yeah, I'm really going to keep an eye on it for sure.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Gibby. This is Christine from Texas. So I just wanted to shout out and say y'all guys are awesome. Love your podcast. Been listening to it for over a year now. Totally caught up on True Crime All the Time. Now I'm starting on Unsolved. Love you guys. I did send an email about a dream that I had about Gibby and Rex West. You've got to read it. It's kind of funny, and I'm too embarrassed to say anything on the voicemail. So its subject line is Bertie, Gibby, and Rex West. Check it out. Love you guys. Keep your head on a swivel. Bye.
Wait, so me and Rex and you?
No. She just put me in the subject line. I'm not in the dream.
Okay.
I'm the one who gets the emails, though, for True Crime All the Time. So I read it, and I cannot unread it. Because the dream is you, Rex West, and you can fill in all the details for yourself.
That Rex West, he just follows me around everywhere.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. I think there was a game of Naked Twister. I don't remember all the details, but I skimmed it, you know. Yeah. At a certain point, I got embarrassed.
Like, I can't even have this open anymore.
No, my kids might walk down.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't that bad, but it was funny. I got a kick out of it. All right, buddy. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.